Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires on the subject of the early game and why it is the portion of the campaign that does define everything else that happens in your campaign, including making the late game completely trivial. It is the way Total War works, especially on legendary difficulty, but on any difficulty in the game, it is that early game portion that is going to be the most consequential. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to use Prince Emeric's campaign of Caledor, because it can be a tricky campaign in quite a few ways. There's quite a few traps that you can fall into as a player that will end up hurting your campaign in quite a few ways. One of the ways your campaign can be hurt over here is that you are surrounded by a bunch of different factions, many of which are fairly hostile to you. Be it Drazov, Tretch, Queek, Skarbrand, Gorbad, and a couple of others like Kugath or Gorst. So managing that situation and managing it effectively is what ultimately determines your success in a campaign. But then with Emeric, you also have the added benefit of being able to confederate Caledor later on, after a couple of turns in this campaign, and then having to deal with this situation over here with Noctilus at the same time. Or you could choose not to, but usually speaking, it is going to be worth doing so, because Ulthuan has a bunch of very useful landmarks, resources, settlements that are inherently good for the High Elves, and legendary Lord Confederations for you to take advantage of. So here's what you want to do in virtually every campaign. First off, take a look at the diplomatic landscape, and you can also install the Toggle Fog of War mod in order to see the strategic situation before you really begin your campaign. You should not use this during the course of a campaign, but it's useful to know exactly what you're going to be dealing with. So we do have Queek, we do have Gorbad, we do have Tretch. What are our campaign objectives? Well, if we look at them, we got to wipe out Tretch, we got to wipe out Kugath, we got to wipe out Queek, Wurzag, that's going to be a heck of a journey, and Skarbrand. But we can worry about these much later. By the time you have to worry about these, your campaign is over. But these ones do matter, and achieving this as quickly as possible is also going to give you a significant boost because of the hero capacity. Crucially, what we don't have to do is end up fighting Drazov. Now, he doesn't like us, so we're going to have to make this situation work. Now, funnily enough, if you do ally Drazov, you get a lot of power through that, because he can give you artillery, he can give you some nice monsters, he can also secure one of your flanks. So the first thing you want to do in virtually every campaign is take a look at what kind of diplomatic deals you can get early on. In this case, it is declaring war on the Darkland Orcs. They're not going to attack me, they're going to be wiped out in a couple of turns, and it is going to start conferring to me a bit of a diplomatic advantage with Drazov at really no cost. I will also be able to gain a bit of money. Now, beyond that, you want to take a look at your settlements and start getting either heroes or unit capacity or growth. You shouldn't necessarily bother with income in settlements very quickly. It is more important to get settlements to a high level in a campaign very quickly. And then, you go fight the initial battle. You want to do this after you've done everything else, specifically with diplomacy, because diplomacy is affected by how strong your army or armies are. So whenever you engage in battle, you're always going to take some casualties, and that will make things more difficult and less rewarding. And it is important that you do minimize casualties, because the weaker you are, the more likely other factions are to take advantage of that, declare war on you, and try and wipe you out. This is why it's so very important in virtually every campaign to fight the first few battles manually, regardless of what the auto-resolve shows, regardless of the difficulty you're on. Now, in order to win a battle like this, with minimal casualties, I can't just engage the dwarves over here directly and expect to not take any losses whatsoever. There are a couple of things to take into consideration. Single entities, including lords and heroes, are much better off at taking damage than your actual units. You also can benefit from being able to distract a portion of the enemy army or lure them towards your specific position. So over here, I'm just throwing fireballs at these guys, and I'm also gonna get my dragon and Emmerich to do a bit of damage. You can see that their artillery is firing at one of my heroes. You can also use this in this tactic in sieges to great effect in order to achieve a good amount of success. Okay, so you can see that their range units have moved out of position right there. Their artillery is moving out of position as well. Everything that they do have right here is just like, it's one big mess of an army situation that we are now going to take advantage of as they're, you know, moving across various locations to try and deal with me. And now I can start moving my spearmen and archers, neutralizing the enemy cav, neutralizing enemy ranged units, or ensuring that the damage they're doing is only on specific targets, is a hell of a way to really help you out. And this is the key to winning a lot of these battles with minimal to no casualties. It is about distracting the enemy, hitting those kind of high damage critical units, ensuring that their lord is wasting his time trying to chase me down in this situation, and just, yeah, dealing with their artillery very, very quickly and efficiently. Now, of course, this may not necessarily work out in the best possible fashion, but as long as you got casualties that you can replenish by the end turn, you're gonna be pretty okay. So we got those dragon princes. You can see the quarrelers are starting to break. Their lord has not actually done anything in this situation. And now, while Emmerich has taken a bit of damage, that is perfectly manageable. Do a bit of cycle charging, and then just, well, that will be essentially it. Try not to get them piled on, because that is a way of taking further damage with your troops. And yes, don't be afraid of using some winds of magic early on in order to achieve success. And if the AI starts doing this, which is like, you know, getting, trying to tarp in my lord, that is actually a great dynamic for me to use and just keep freaking moving effectively, because that is really gonna work out. The key to winning battles with minimal to no casualty. So over here, 34 casualties, mostly among the dragon princes. Emmerich took a bit of damage, but that's something that's very easy to recover, and the dwarves have in effect been wiped out. We're gonna ransom the captives in order to get that influence benefit over here, and then we're also going to get root marchers, always very important to pick up, as well as improve our magic spell. It is also worth it to get yourself a second lord very, very quickly. Now, in certain campaigns, you may want to use the load save character system. In other campaigns, you may not care about it. For high elves, you do have the administrator trait, but I'm not going to use it. That is the ultimate bullshit. You don't give a shit about your campaign kind of situation. Instead, I'm just going to get the prince with adept over here. And we're just going to recruit some archers while Emmerich goes over here to the settlement. Inherently, one of the things to know is that settlements themselves have a fairly substantial auto-resolve benefit. So if I auto-resolve this, I'll take far more casualties than I otherwise would. So I do want to fight this manually. I do want to take this specific settlement. I also want to start getting research that is available. Getting research that's going to give you benefits is important. Usually it's some kind of campaign benefits, but you don't have really that kind of luxury in some cases, like with the high elves. So what I'm aiming for is archery prowess, militia training, and then to get light ephemeral armor and precise fletching, and maybe martial law, by which point I should have cultural advancements and trade advancements available. So I'm just going to want to conquer this province, get myself a bunch of archers. I also even have ogre mercenaries in this kind of campaign situation to work with. I could also wait a turn over here before taking the settlement, because sometimes it's worth not taking stuff instantly and waiting a bit. Specifically for Emmerich, it is because his objective to confederate Calador is going to kick up on turn 2. So yeah, you just want to take this province and then move on. Now, another little trick to talk about over here that you can use in order to make things better is, of course, using force marching, but you don't want your troops to be tired in battle. However, if you do transfer them to another army, they won't be. In this case, I just recruited myself a bunch of archers with light armor, and now I can just easily take over a settlement, even just auto-resolve it. And as you can see, I've gotten 2 of the 6 elements required for Return of the Prince. There will also be a rebellion here, so even though I am paying a cost over there, I'm just going to use the low save character for a noble, and then just get rid of the noble structure, because I won't be able to increase capacity for structures until tier 4. And now I just want to focus on growth, focus on getting more units, so get myself more archers with light armor with regards to that prince, and get things like Bowmaster. Usually speaking, the way I prefer to level up my lords and my heroes, I want to get Root Marcher, I want to get Inspiring Presence, I want to get some red skill line, and then I want to save my points. Another thing that's going to happen here, and this is deliberate, is I want a rebellion to kick off in this specific location. The reason I want that is because I want more experience, more post-battle loot, more influence to work with. So by having that rebellion deliberately being sparked, I can then, benefit from it. Rebellions are a joke of a mechanic in the way that they work in Total War. They're almost always free experience and free money, and the downsides are rather insignificant. So anyway, I do want to get everything sorted out over here. So now we got ourselves a casualty replenishment hero, something that's always going to be very important. And we can then take Emmerich. We do need to move that prince further. So we can then take Emmerich and just easily wipe out this rebellion, don't even need to fight it. The worst auto-resolve you're always going to have is with regards to settlements themselves. So if you're in a kind of situation like this, you can always take advantage of things in your favor. And now we can just move that noble closer. We are going to start getting that growth. We're going to get more in Bowmaster. We're going to get more in Magic. And no one's going to attack us for a while until Drazov decides that we're a prime target. But because we minimize our casualties, that in itself is also unlikely to happen. For now. I mean, my faction strength rank is not really the best at this point, but it is good enough to get the job done. So what is the next objective once you secure your initial province? And there is a reason I moved in that way. Well, 1 is because it's natural. 2, because I was looking to actually achieve something very specific over here in where my armies would end up being. So my next objective, and it's always worth asking yourself, okay, where am I going to be 1 turn from now, 2 turns from now, that kind of stuff, right? Well, what I want to do here is I want to wipe out these ogres, as you can see. So we just declare war on them. They do have an army, but it is an insignificant one. And weirdly enough, ogre camps do actually end up having something of a significant auto-resolve benefit. But now we do have a full force. We can even disband this little prince, because he's done his job. Or we can try and recruit more units for him, Though, if you want to disband an army but be able to get the same lord very quickly back on the field, what you should use is reset all skill points, because it will give you back that lord in 3 turns. We don't need them anymore. In that situation, there's no real tangible benefit in keeping him up. In fact, there's also no benefit in keeping that barracks up right now. So don't be afraid of taking a building, getting rid of that building, and getting it into another settlement. It depends on what you're dealing with, what the kind of situation you've got on hand. But in this case, the basic barracks usually is best constructed in minor settlements as opposed to provincial capital. The reason you get it in a provincial capital is because you want to get it to a high tier as quickly as possible, and that generally is worth doing in the provincial capital of your initial province. So you can see our control is stabilizing. By provoking that rebellion early on, we got ourselves that advantage. Now we're no longer going to face any kind of issues in terms of, like, you know, a province rebelling when I'm away from it. So now we can also start getting ourselves some spearmen and just keeping construction of various things. Get spear wall, get militia training, as I said, follow the path. And remember, one of our objectives is to get Kuvkav. So once I get to like level 7, I'll save up skill points. The reason I save skill points is because I want to save up from 7 to 12 and have the skill points needed to get all these special skills at once. The only time where you shouldn't do this is if you need to do it for a specific battle, like say for instance you're about to fight Scarbrand or Grimgore and you just need that kind of early game combat advantage. But what's important here is we can start making a deal with Astrogoth. He still doesn't like us. Absolutely not. But now we can just go declare war on Kugath through the Lizardmen, get paid for declaring war on Kugath, and then we can also go to Astrogoth and sell him Rune's End. And while that's in itself not enough to get him involved in a war in Kugath, we're not far off from that. In terms of region trading, yep, he's basically demanding a ransom. But in terms of region trading, here's the thing that actually matters. The closer a province is to the eye, the better. If it has a barracks or any kind of building of value like a landmark, the more the AI is going to want it. Ports do count. And if the AI is closer to completing control over a particular location, they're going to value that even further. So over here, we can sell him Rune's End. It won't give us the most amount of money. It won't even give us a non-aggression pact. But quite very crucially, it does put him at war right there. It does put him at war right there with Kugath. So we don't have to worry about killing Kugath. We can now start worrying about different other things, like for instance the rodent that's to the north, which we don't have vision with him. And that's a good thing because we don't want vision with him. Very important aspect. If a faction doesn't see you, they can't fight you. So now what Drazov is going to do, he's going to start marching his forces right there. Whenever you trade the settlement to the AI or the AI's conquering settlement, it's going to start moving its forces towards that location. And so you know how the AI is going to behave in this kind of situation. In fact, if I wanted to screw Drazov over, I take all his money and then just march on his provincial capital and wipe out the Black Fortress with relative fucking ease. But anyway, so we just take over Pig Barter. We sell this structure. We want to get that barracks right there. We can see that we got some ogres, so I might want to start getting a new army right here. Or we can just ask Drazov to declare war on the ogres for us, or set up an ambush for them. That is a strategy that we can absolutely use in this situation. Casualty replenishment always worth advancing. So we are at 9 influence at this point. So let's see where those ogres are gonna go, because we can't control that. We've also ruined Kugaf's plan a bit, because he's gonna have to worry about, like, oh, is Drazov gonna attack me over here or not, dependent on how things do play out. So let's see where those ogres are. We have no idea in this kind of situation. Alright, so we get a quest bow. Sometimes you want to do them instantly, other times not necessarily so much. The ogres still are on the map, and we just prepare ourselves to sell Pig Barter to Drazov. He's not gonna like the fact that we're marching through his territory. And in this case, you can see that the prince that we respect is now available again. It's gonna take me a few turns to be able to get, or it's gonna take me 2 turns to be able to get the barracks back up, but that's fine. We do have that dragon event that's gonna happen. And yeah, when you remove all settlements from the AI, they will likely do a suicide charge. In this case, they're so weak that they can't, that they launched a direct assault against my capital, and as you might imagine, they got wiped out by the garrison. Auto-resolve in a situation. The fact that settlements have an auto-resolve benefit is also something that you can use as a player. So anyway, one of the ways to improve your relations with the faction is you can take a settlement that you have, that you know the AI values, and you can trade it for another settlement and then sell the other settlement back to the AI. This will further improve diplomatic relations. And if you want to cheese, you can also ask the AI for money it doesn't have, because it will freaking work. Okay. So with everything that I've just done, my entire eastern flank is now secure. So these ogres, they're no longer a concern. Kugaf is no longer a concern. And I don't really have to worry about anything over here. So we just wipe out those ogres, we'll get the dragon, we can deal with the dragon, very simple. And now we could even march through Drazov's territory in order to wipe out Tretch. But why fight Tretch like that when we can fight the dwarves and then fight Tretch and position ourselves in such a way as to deal with Quake? But here's the thing. In less than 10 turns, I've already won this campaign. My eastern flank is secure, my northern flank is secure, my western flank is also secure, or I have full control. The only question I have here is how long it's going to take me to get back to Calador. In this case, it does seem that the AI has decided to screw me over a bit by the way it's decided to handle a couple of things. We're going to go for some local recruitment capacity because we want to get our hands on some archers. Another thing that Emmerich does have is that he has a quest battle available to him. And it's not important to fight these quest battles yourself, but what is important is that it can grant you vision on an area of the campaign map, specifically over here with the Scourge of Cain. And you can use this over and over again. Why is that so useful? Well, because you might be able to use it to interact with other legendary lords of your own race. So in this case, we get a dragon battle situation, right? And we can even go fight this dragon, though, yeah, this one's gonna be a bit of a tricky one, but we win this battle. We win this battle, we get a bunch of money, we get a bunch of influence. Actually, I think we got lucky because this is the easiest quest battle to fight. Like, yes, there's a bunch of Norskins, we're high elves, we don't worry about monsters. So what do you do after this point? You secure your flank, you go after Quake, and then you go conquer all of Ulfon once you do get control of Calador. You're kind of against the clock, though, with controlling Calador. And it may seem ridiculous to have to end up fighting Karakazul, but keep in mind, Karakazul is going to be wiped out by Tretch, so why not take advantage of that situation for your own personal benefit? Also, another quest battle that gives you further benefit, so you can get a bit of money from Ungram and start building relations with him. It is, though, going to be a tricky affair because, well, let's just say cast dwarves and dwarves don't mesh that well together. Another tactic you can use is being able to deny your opponent the ability of taking over territory. So over here, for instance, I have a small force in this location. I could take the settlement, because I have enough troops over here to succeed in that in terms of auto-resolve. I've done the quest battle, I've gotten one of the dragons, all well and good. But now, instead of taking the settlement, it's actually beneficial if I kinda don't take the settlement at this specific point. The reason it's worth not taking the settlement at this specific point is that when you lay a siege to a settlement like this, and the faction you're laying siege to is at war with another faction, that other faction may end up in a bit of a, let's just say, sticky situation that is not necessarily going to go in their favor. So over here, what I really want from Tretch is for Tretch to commit as many forces as possible in this area, and for him to not leave as easily. So I laid siege for one turn, gonna disband this army. I got 2 more nobles because Emmerich has a special skill line that increases nobles. This is why it's important to save up for the special skill line, because being able to get all of this stuff at once is a hell of a power trip very quickly in your campaign situation. So anyway, we can now sack this settlement right here. We don't want to occupy it because, like I said, this is about laying a trap for a rodent, because Tretch is still at war with these guys. So what is Tretch inherently going to do? He's going to fall for the trap. He's going to want to take that settlement, and that's where we'll wipe him out. Also, one of the things that's really stupid, and one of the things to always remember about this kind of stuff, is how you can achieve your victory conditions, the number of settlements that you need to take, in because it's the question of, okay, how is the game going to count it? Let's say, I sacked a settlement once with one army. What if next turn, Tretch takes it, or I just occupy it myself? No, in this case, it's probably going to be Tretch that is going to go for it. Though I'm guessing he's also focusing on some other settlements of Karak Azul. But yeah, you can see that he does absolutely have a fairly substantial force over here. That's fine. So do we. And what I'm just looking to do right here is just draw him into my weave, so to speak. Okay. So Emmerich is primed to either wipe out Tretch's arm or take Karak Azul, or both, right here. I'm guessing, yep, and there are the dwarves. We can also potentially get Quake to declare war on Tretch. Not using region trading and diplomacy and then talking about campaigns is, a bit of an irrelevancy. So what we're gonna do is just sack this element again. I wonder if that's gonna count. Well, no, because usually what it requires you to do is like if we look at this situation, it didn't work in that case because it requires you to either use a different army if you're doing the same action, or to do a different action if you're going to be able to pull it off. But yeah, in this case, we did pull it off. We even got the lovely little barracks over there. There's something to be said about how you manage to pull all of this off, though. But yeah, now we got a situation here that we can take advantage of. We've Confederate Calidor. We can get a new lord right here, regardless of what the trait is going to be. Maybe we do want Dragonweld, why not? Let's spend all that freaking influence. Oh, but we don't have money, you might say. That is as unimportant of an issue as you might think. Because there are ways of gaining money at this point. Be it through declarations of war on various factions, diplomacy deals. This is why Calidor is such a big freaking affair. Because it gives you this kind of campaign power. And you can just meet various factions, declare war on them, get rich in the process. And now, we got Trench exactly where we wanted to. Of course, it would have been better, I'm not gonna lie, it would have been better had had the situation gone off a bit differently. Yeah, the campaign is in effect over. Not even 20 turns, pretty much. We can even screw over Quake if we want to. Do we want to? Well, that's a different discussion altogether. But if I actually did need money here, and I don't, that would be a way to actually get it in this kind of campaign situation. So yeah, this is how you win campaigns in a very, very quick time. You strategize, you think about how you're going to do, and you might say, well, you haven't won the campaign, you haven't achieved your objectives against either Tretch, Queek, or Kugaf. Well, Queek at this point, he's been denied one specific province, and I've got the entire stack, so I'm not worried about that. Calidor is actually the vulnerable spot over here in this situation, because, you know, Noctilus being Noctilus could potentially be a problem, but we can use nobles. If I just get a turn of recruitment, Calidor will be fine. But yeah, I do need to keep control of this element. Besides, Noctilus is unlikely to declare war on us, especially if we go to him and get the non-aggression pact by declaring war on Terranok, or just declare war on Terranok in general, because why not? We want the territory for ourselves anyway. And yes, I do see it. I do absolutely see it. But we can always buy ourselves a bit of freaking time over there. And we can also just have our enemies annihilate each other. So, for instance, we can just tell him, hey, you want money? Go fucking kill Queek, the Tretch. And then we can go to Tretch and just be like, hey, you want a piece of deal? You can have it. My armies will absolutely suffer for the lack of replenishment, but I kind of don't care about it, do I? And the best part is, I could just sit back, wait for them to wipe each other out, and then wipe out Queek in the process when he's very vulnerable. So I'll always look to turn this favorable situation like this in your favor, because it will always freaking work. Oh, also Drazov just declared war on Tretch, so problem inherently solved, isn't it? very easily, actually, at that. So yeah, situation resolved, no issues whatsoever. Now we gotta find a way. Now what's next is the real question. Well, there are various possibilities over here. But one of the smarter ones would be to go right. Pay attention to what you've got over here, because we do have an army of Noctilus to tackle right here. But on the flip side, that money looks pretty good, not gonna lie. So much for Noctilus, huh? Guess he lost his entire force. Or we could pick that battle, win that battle. I mean, it is Noctilus. And this is why auto-resolve tends to be a load of bullshit, because it's like, oh yeah, you totally would lose that battle. No, I don't think I would. I really don't think I would lose that one. But just to be sure, right? Yeah. That's how you win a campaign very quickly. Either way, how you end up in the situation. Right now, I'm just gonna sweep Wolf 1 of Noctilus, take out his territory, build a bunch of units, global recruitment, local recruitment, and then eventually wipe out Tretch, Quake, and Scarbrand. How you decide to do things after this point doesn't matter, is immaterial. I got a couple of turns of a peace deal with Tretch, but he's gonna be wiped out by Drazov, and maybe Quake. I could go for Nagashizar. There are all kinds of different choices with respect to this. But is this specific dynamic, let's ignore this for a moment. But it is precisely because of what I'm able to achieve here in the very short term that trivializes the entirety of the endgame. Because what are these factions going to do long term, right? What are any of them going to be able to do against me? And this is me at my most vulnerable. You know, when I don't have a dozen armies, when I don't have heroes, when I don't have an economy that just can sustain free full stacks. I'm getting there. I will get there. Give me a good Confederation, and it will be done. This is why playing highly aggressive, regardless of the race you're doing. And Dark Elves are, the High Elves are not that race in a campaign. They don't excel at that specific playstyle. But they're still good because they're lacking heroes, unit variety. Sure, spearmen and archers are good enough, but yeah, let's just say that some battles can be a bit tricky. So if I really wanted to push bullshit to the nth degree, I could just literally take Nagashizar and invade Quake from the south. I would end up at this capital. I would also, because this is where the bullshit really comes in, I could also just ignore that and instead go for Lamia, get Forik, and together with Forik launch an anti-rat crusade. It is an idea. It may work. It may work very, very well. That's why it's important to understand the map and the relationship you have with various factions and maintaining those kind of relationships. It is likely that my alliance with Drazov is not going to last. That's fine. I'm perfectly content with the idea of it not lasting. Because I would rather ally Greasus, and I would also rather not have to fight Grimgor in this campaign. You don't have to do that. So, that's all I had to say. Quistine, signing out.